1940 was an odd time for Fox. They were looking to replace Alice Faye with a newer model, so they signed Betty Grable, who would rule the box office for a decade. However, no one talks about the other girl they signed in case Grable didn't take off with viewers, Carole Landis. Before we get into Carole Landis, you need to understand that Grable was considered the comeback kid. After working in Hollywood for a decade, starting at age 12, Grable had gone to Broadway to star in Do Barry Was a Lady. Fox decided shortly before she left to sign her to a contract, but there was no guarantee she wouldn't get dropped. If Hollywood didn't come calling, she planned to stay on Broadway. After signing Grable, Fox was in a pickle. They didn't want to put all their hopes on a woman who'd starred in a series of low-budget college films for Paramount, but they wanted to keep Faye on her toes and groom a replacement. So they signed Hal Roach's latest sensation, Carole Landis. Carole was a fellow blonde with a figure that would more closely resemble the 1950s ideal than the athletic, Rosie the Riveter-esque 40s bombshells like Betty Grable, Lana Turner, and Rita Hayworth. Along with fellow newcomer Victor Mature, Landis had become a near overnight sensation with Roach's 1 Million BC. Carole signed with Fox in December of 1940. Some writers claim her first official act was to almost immediately turn down the role of Donna Soul in Blood and Sand, a role that would eventually go to Rita Hayworth because she would need to dye her hair. However, I've never seen anything supporting the claim that she was even up for the role. Newspaper clippings from the time say she was cast as the titular character in Belle Starr, a role that would eventually go to Gene Tierney. Furthermore, by January 24th, 1941, roughly a month after Carole signed, Hayworth was announced as being in the running after Hedy Lamarr left the project. I would chalk this up to Hollywood fiction, as it seems unlikely Carole would have refused to change her hair to play the female lead in one of Fox's most expensive pictures of the year. Fox ran a pretty formulaic process when building stars. They'd put them in supporting roles in B pictures to see how audiences took to them. If audiences wrote in, the star would get better roles. The only reason Grable wasn't subjected to this process was because she had an established, albeit flimsy, image as a cute co-ed that Fox grew up to be a cute young woman in her 20s. To see which star they should get behind, Fox cast Grable and Landis in Moon Over Miami. Grable was hot off the success of Down Argentine Way and was the female lead, while Carole played the second female lead. In the brief scenes Carole is allowed to shine in, she definitely holds her own, but her huskier voice and voluptuous figure don't evoke the girl next door image that Fox was looking to build upon. It seems like Carole's role gets relegated to keeping Grable in line, with two scenes commenting on Carole's attractiveness when compared to Grable.
Get these dresses out of here. Susan, straighten your apron. Barbara, your glasses. I don't want you to look better.
Hey, she's good looking enough to be one of your own family. What's the idea of holding her out on us?
Well, I really didn't know she'd turn out so well.
Oh, you knew it all the time. You just kept her undercover so she wouldn't outshine you.
However, Fox was determined to continue testing both stars to see which one was more likely to connect with U.S. audiences. Carole's next film, Dance Hall, paired her with Cesar Romero. The lighthearted romantic comedy put Carole in tight Herschel McCoy gowns and let her show off her exemplary singing voice, but the script was weak and production values were low. A solid stock film, the picture was made for roughly $200,000. Grable, meanwhile, was cast in A Yank in the Raft, co-starring Tyrone Power. Yank, however, received the Daryl Zanuck treatment, with Zanuck working on the screenplay and top studio talent like costume designer Travis Banton using their skills to make the film one of 1941's highest grossers. Fox then decided to reteam Grable and Carole, and I wake up screaming. Personally, I don't know what they were trying to accomplish with this beyond showing that Carole would from now on primarily play supporting roles. However, while Grable arguably ran away with Miami, Carole shines in Screaming. Her few scenes show a budding dramatic talent that was more than capable of succeeding in serious pictures. However, Fox wasn't looking for another dramatic star. After I Wake Up Screaming, Carole was put in two mediocre comedies, Cadet Girl and A Gentleman at Heart. Cadet Girl's notable only for it being the last film where Carole received top billing until 1946's Behind Green Lights. She then received the role of May Collins in My Gal Sal, working as the film's fourth billed star. My Gal Sal is interesting because people consider it the role she missed out on, preventing her from moving forward in her career at Fox. Casting of the film was an absolute mess. However, I personally very much doubt Carole was ever in serious consideration for the lead. From March to September of 1941, Alice Faye was paraded around as the lead, with Carole landing the role of May Collins until Faye dropped out due to expecting a baby. Carole was then called upon as a possible replacement for Faye around October 11th. However, within a week, Rita Hayworth was announced as the likely lead, signing a month later. Although some people consider My Gal Sal the film that got away, I would argue the ship sailed for Carole to reach her full potential when Fox put her as a support with minuscule screen time in I Wake Up Screaming. Carole's reported project after My Gal Sal was Highway to Hell, a film that got shelved. According to numerous sources, Highway to Hell's shelving was tied to Carole ending an affair with Daryl Zanuck. I don't normally deviate from family lore on things, but I'm still not convinced on the Zanuck Landis affair. Zanuck was a creep, but he followed a pretty standard cycle of behavior when his mistresses were in films. He would move heaven and earth to build them up. Carole was reportedly Zanuck's mistress for about 2 years, and she never once got put in an A picture as the lead. Plus, he pulled not only Highway to Hell, but also Belle Starr at the beginning of their supposed relationship. Now, could Zanuck have pressured or threatened Carole to sleep with him a la Harvey Weinstein? Yeah, absolutely. But the story told is that they had an affair for 2 years, which is why he signed her in the first place. If they did sleep together, it seems more likely that the affair ended relatively quickly after he pulled her from Belle Starr. Some stars got signed and the studio never really tried to build their image, preventing them from taking off. This doesn't mean they weren't popular with certain audiences. Carole's extensive support of the troops got her dedicated fan base, but they never really are able to bring in audiences in droves. They bring in profits with their films, though, so the studio doesn't drop them. Fox relied heavily on these films to keep money coming in for more prestigious productions. The other issue I see with Carole is the constant miscasting. Rather than put her in light work like Grable was doing, Fox likely would have had a much bigger star in their hands if they allowed her to hone her dramatic abilities. Instead, hell-bent on sticking to the blonde-led musical formula, Fox put her in light comedies like Cadet Girl, A Gentleman at Heart, Orchestra Wives, and It Should Happen to a Dog. However, Carole really shines in films like I Wake Up Screaming, Secret Command, and News. Carole easily could have become a noir fixture, but Fox had squandered her career by the late 1940s when the genre took off. Finally, fans argue that Carole's extensive work for the war effort affected her career. I think there's some truth to this, as her output was incredibly thin for 1943 to 45, minus supporting roles, Secret Command, and the adaptation of her book, Four Jills and a Jeep. However, due to her popularity with the troops, Carole theoretically should have been able to get them in seats after the war ended. Again, I would use this as proof that Fox decided not to build up Carole except in B pictures as a support in 1941 to 42. Fox was more than willing to exploit Carole's dedication to the troops, but they weren't willing to support her. Unfortunately, more people know about Carole today because of her tragic death. However, in the early 1940s, Carole's career was moving ahead well. If Fox had treated her differently, she may have become one of the most popular stars of the decade.